I'm Teresa Pittman. I have been a leader in Canada for more than 40 some years, which is a really long time. I was at one time the executive director of Leche League Canada as well, and I did work on the previous edition when it was still called the Womanly Art of Breastfeeding. So I have a lot of background in these things. I live in Guelph, Ontario. I have 4 children and I have 10 grandchildren, and I'm expecting my first great grandchild to show up any day now.
I'm Viviana. I'm from Barcelona, Spain. While we wrote the book, I was in Mexico. I recently moved to Michigan, so now I'm closer to Teresa. I'm a mom of 2 and 2 dogs now. What else? I've been a leader since 2016, so almost 10 years. And I'm a biologist. I've done some research in prolactin, so that's where I got a little bit of this research background in breastfeeding and so on.
I'm Anna Swisher. I live in Central Texas, and I've been a Leche League leader since 1995. I have 3 grown children and 3 grandsons who are adorable. And now our lives are ruled by a 5-pound Chihuahua.
Hi, greetings from Oxford in England, across the Atlantic, where I'm a Leche League leader, and I'm a mom of 3. My youngest is 17, my oldest is turning 25 this year, and no grandchildren, no dogs, but we do have a cat, which spent quite a lot of time wandering across the Zoom screen while we were writing the book. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for having us.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're so honored to be joined by the authors of the new Art of Breastfeeding. This updated edition of a beloved classic offers parents real, inclusive, and deeply supportive information grounded in lived experience and the latest in breastfeeding and nursing knowledge. Whether you're expecting your first baby or parenting through the toddler years, this conversation is for you. Well, we're going to explore a bit about how the book is structured, what makes it special, and how it fits into today's parenting landscape, alongside free resources on the Leche League Canada and the Leche League International websites. Welcome, all of you, and thank you. So this edition of The Art of Breastfeeding is beautifully structured to meet families where they are. Can you tell us a bit about how the book is organized and why that matters during the early days and months of parenting?
Well, I will go first, I guess. What we've kind of done is the first few days they each get their own chapter basically, and then it goes to like over the weeks, and then it goes to a group of months down the road, and then after that there's sort of some special topics like going back to work, starting solids, those kinds of things, because they're more specific, I guess. And that's because most of the questions and concerns that people might have are in those early days and weeks, and so there's a little more space in those chapters to talk about them. As time goes on, we talk about what's typical or concerns people might have at different ages, but it's broader, and so that's why those chapters cover a few months. So I think in a way it kind of gives you an idea of what to expect with breastfeeding, is that there's going to be the most attention spent on the actual workings of breastfeeding in those first few days and weeks. As time goes on, it becomes much more natural to you. You don't have as many questions and concerns, but there's some broader ones that come up in those months, if that's any help.
That was great. Yes. And you're right. The first few days are often the hardest, as we hear from many families. I love that parents can kind of dip in and out of the book without needing to read it cover to cover, because sometimes these parenting books can be so overwhelming. So this book is one that you can just pop in and out. Can you talk a bit about how families might use the index, how it was designed, and how to find things when they need it in the moment?
I can address that if you like. So we extensively reviewed the index. We wanted to make it user-friendly, recognizing, as Teresa has said, that energy and attention are in very short supply in the early days, postpartum especially. So the index is organized by topic, and then importantly, the story contributors' names are included. So, for example, you mentioned Sindel. Their story is in there by name. And so that's been, I think, a really holistic, inclusive way for the contributors to be a part of the story.
Yes, you included so many stories from so many different families, not just within North America. Why was it important to feature these voices? And do you each have a personal favorite?
Well, the stories are the best. The stories are the best bit, right? Like if you don't want to read the rest of the book, just read the stories. It's really easy to pick them out because they're sort of in a different font, so you can just dip in and out and read the odd story. That's what I would do. I've got loads of favorite stories, but sorry, Bibi, you were going to say something about stories.
No, not really. I just want to say that about this broader origin of the stories, which was really important to us because even among us come from different countries, and that I think helped us realize that everyone has a different culture. We knew it, but during our conversations, we were even more aware of that we have different cultural backgrounds, different influences, different realities. And to us, it was really important to get that in the book. And to do that, and also making the stories the important part of the book, that's why we thought, let's try to get stories from all over the world. That's going to bring all the cultural backgrounds, all the cultural influences from everywhere we can reach. That was really, really important for us.
Yeah, and as well as different cultures and backgrounds, there's just different mothers and different choices.
Mm-hmm.
I remember at the beginning of the chapter on separation, work and separation, there's 2 stories or quotes from mothers who I think are both in the same place. They're both in the UK. And one says, well, they're both English language speakers anyway. And one of them says, I'm so delighted I could stay at home with my baby. It meant a massive amount to me that I could do that in the early years. And then the other one, similar culture, says, I went back to work when each of my babies was 9 to 12 months old. It was really important to me, and I felt that made me a better mother. So they're just, it was very important to us to get across the sense of multiple perspectives. There's never one way of doing something. There's always more than one way. And we can tell people that, but it comes across much more clearly if you hear it from mothers themselves. And also just also shout out that the stories are not just from mothers this time. They're mostly from mothers, but we also hear from a couple of dads and also some grandmothers. So we're really centering in this book on the fact that relationship between the mother and the nursing parent and the baby doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's all these people around who are key to what breastfeeding looks like, and we wanted to include some of those voices as well. And we're hoping that people read the book. Sorry.
I wanted to say that most of the time, I think in breastfeeding books and other related things, that we hear success stories. So, the mother had a problem, she followed all our advice, and the problem was solved, and she now has lots of milk and everything's great. But in this book, there's some real stories about parents who had a challenge, a problem, and weren't able to move on to exclusive breastfeeding or achieve what they had hoped to achieve, and that was also okay, and how they worked through that and found a way to make whatever their situation was work for them. And I just think that's so important, because it's not what we hear all the time. And so sometimes parents who do try to follow the advice and then find, what, I'm still only making this much milk, feel like they failed or they've done something wrong. And these stories, I hope, will let them know that they have not failed and that this is also something that happens with people.
What about favorite stories? I'm just trying to pick one. Has anyone else got one that they can just leave?
I have two, but that I will mention. One is Dan, because Dan is my son, and he wrote a lovely piece about bed sharing, which just makes me happy when I see it. And the other is Stephanie George, who is, I'm going to do the Canadian ones because I'm Canadian, but who is Indigenous, a former leader, an LLLc, and an Indigenous midwife who really shared information about the Indigenous heritage that she brought to her experience of mothering and breastfeeding and everything, which I think is quite lovely. And her story is also on the Leche League International website, the full story that she wrote. And that has to be one of my favorites, I think.
If I have to mention one, only one, but I love all of them, would be the one about, I'm really bad with the name, so I don't remember the name. Maybe one of us here remember the one about milk sharing. There's one about milk sharing, the whole community helping a mother getting breast milk for, I don't remember, it's her or his baby. And it's a really wonderful story. And it also exposes the milk sharing to the world, which has been a long time a closet thing, no? That one is amazing.
Yeah, I think that's Fee, who's a UK mother. And and her baby Willow was very, very sick and never breastfed. And she and something like 11 friends expressed milk, and Willow had milk expressed for her for 2 years, which was just astonishing. I think we all cried when we read that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I had so many favorite stories. I can't pick just one out, but one that is on the website in its entirety is from Aurelia. And she writes very eloquently about the general, all the feelings of new motherhood. And she also talks about the role of ritual as a part of healing birth trauma. And so, as Teresa was saying, you know, when things don't go perfectly, we really address that. And so that's a powerful, beautiful healing story.
Yeah, that one is I think all of those were some of my favorites that you mentioned as well. And the one about the milk sharing definitely had me in my feels. There were some happy tears to that one, so I can relate to that. There is a growing need for support that's inclusive and reflective of different family realities. How does this book speak to families with different identities, challenges, and feeding goals?
Well, I think it's the stories again, right? The stories really bring that out, the different situations that they have. And we do try to be inclusive in the things that we talk about, you know, considering different situations. When we talk about having a newborn, we also talked about, you know, your baby might have been born by a surrogate, your baby might have you know, been adopted. So we try to look at those different situations in what we write about, and not always assume this is how things are. I think we get, you know, and even talking about the milk sharing, from the last question, that was something that was not really ever discussed in the Leche League books before. Like, it just was like, you know, we just didn't talk about it even as it was happening. So I think that's, I don't know, is that another kind of family? Kind of is, you know,
Community family, right?
That kind of community. Yeah. So we really have tried to think about those things. And it's one of the good things about having a group of 4 writers is that we kind of can remind each other, hey, you didn't say anything about this in your the chapter you were working on. So it's good.
Yeah. And
And
one of
we,
the things, sorry, Anna, go for it, Anna.
oh, I was just going to say we expanded the idea of diversity beyond different types of family to look at things like health issues in both parents and children, neurodiversity, chronic health conditions, and their particular challenges. And then in terms of their feeding goals, giving support and information, whether they want to breastfeed for a day or for years.
Yeah. And the part that perhaps was most noticeable to me, because I'm not in the Americas, is that the book doesn't assume any sort of particular cultural context or healthcare system. Previous editions of the book were very much sort of cited within a North American type healthcare system. And it was really important to us that this book would be relatable to parents everywhere, whatever the kind of healthcare providers they've got or whatever kind of resources they've got. So yeah, I quite often thought while we were writing it, my job was to go, but we don't do that here. We just tried to make it very generic. And we talked about your healthcare provider rather than your obstetrician or midwife or whatever, because we don't know what people have got. And we don't assume that people can easily access healthcare either, or even the internet. So we tried to make it relevant and useful, whether you're in a very high resource setting or a very low resource setting or anything in between. And hopefully parents from all over the world will sort of see themselves in it. We didn't manage to get stories from absolutely everywhere in the world, but we did get a lot of stories from a lot of places. And we've said if readers come to the book and they feel, but I'm not in here, I don't see anyone like me or from my place, then please write down your story, because there will be a 10th edition coming along. So, be in that one. It's really important. We want it to reflect the whole Leche League community, and that's global.
Yeah, we also try to do or use as easy as possible language, so that everybody can read it, even non-native English speakers. So it was also an intent to make it as accessible as possible for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got more pictures, and my favorite, it's got loads of bullet lists. I really like bullet lists. I really like that, because if you're really tired and sleep deprived and have a short attention span, they're very useful. And also I'm thinking leaders might, perhaps if they're helping a mom on the phone or something, they could maybe take a photograph of a page and kind of send it over and say, there's some ideas here that might be useful. Have a look at page 62. So I hope that makes it really useful in practice.
Yeah, and I think having the lower literacy rate, well, I know having lower literacy rate doesn't necessarily mean well, it always means that it's easier for anyone to read, but also for those who are exhausted late at night, right? And wanting to read. And one of the great things is we just recently, within the Leche League Canada, we just got the audiobook available on our virtual library. So that's another amazing resource, is having it available as an audiobook. And just being able to skip chapters and listen to different things is really helpful as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
I know that not everything could fit into this book. Could you share a bit about the additional stories that you mentioned and the resources that are available on Leche League International and Teresa, even on the Leche League Canada website?
I want you to see how thick this book is. I know it's kind of blurred, but there's a lot in there, but yeah, not everything. I'll talk a bit about the Leche League Canada ones, if that's okay, because I'm the only Canadian in the group. But I've been very impressed by the work that's been put into adding some easy to access resources for parents. And honestly, you don't have to be in Canada to access them. That's a secret, but there's some like information sheets, brochures, kinds of things on all kinds of topics. And there's some wonderful videos, and the newest one is that I've seen anyway is the mother with the newborn baby, and it's just so helpful to see an actual newborn trying to, latching on in different positions with this lovely calm mother who is just, working with the baby, I've sent the link to a number of people already, including my oldest grandson, who is about to have a baby. Well, his wife is having the baby any day now. So I made sure that they got a chance to watch those before the baby arrives. But, you know, if you are looking for some just easy information that you know, these videos are quite short, the handouts are short, and yet very informative and helpful. So I would encourage and everybody to check those out if they have concerns. And Jane agrees with me.
One of the great things about those newborn videos that here in Canada that we love, and probably elsewhere, is that the only one touching baby is mom. And, you know, that kind of, it reassures parents that you can do this, right? Like this is something that you can do instead of needing, because how many times have you had a meeting and you've heard a mom come and say, baby was latching fine at, you know, at the IBCLC's office or at the doctor's office. And then I go home and I can't do it because they're not there showing her how. But with these videos, you just see, and mom's name's Heather, you just see Heather moving baby around by herself. And I think that's another empowering part of those videos too, is just being able to see that you can do this on your own without other people's hands.
They're really lovely, but it's that one especially.
And so there's a bit more stories you're saying on the international website. So not all the stories made it into the book. Is that correct?
That's correct. So when we turned in the manuscript, it was a third longer than the publisher would allow. And we were devastated to have to take so much out. So we really appreciate that La Leche League International put those topics on the website. And so there are in-depth, you know, articles about things like fasting or eating disorders, postpartum, you know, mood disorders. So that was really important. And then to your point about the stories, we had what, over 200 responses?
Yep.
Yeah.
And we can only fit some excerpts of them in the book. So in the web page, there's the whole incomplete story for lots of them, no? And that's also wonderful because sometimes the context also helps, no? Because having to cut so many pages, it was really, really, really bad for us.
Yes, it was. That was the worst part.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so just to clarify, there's two places on the LLLI website where you can find material related to the book. One is if you go to resources and pick breastfeeding information, there's some topics that we couldn't fit into the book incorporated in the breastfeeding A to Z, which is fantastic already, but it's got some extra information that sort of overflowed from the book onto there. Like Anna mentioned, eating disorders and fasting are two new topics that we had worked on. And then also in the breastfeeding resources section on the LLLi website, there's an Art of Breastfeeding section. You can find there, like Bibi said, some long versions of stories which we could only fit bits of in the book. And also there's a things called Want to Know More, which is a little section that relates to each chapter of the book, which has suggestions for things like videos, websites, books that are connected to the different chapters. And we chose to put them on the website rather than in the book, partly because of space, but also because those things will date quickly. You know, websites go out of date and change and better videos come along. So on the website, the goal is that we can keep them updated. So if you're loving the chapter on sleep, for example, in the book, you can go to the website, check out Want to Know More, and you'll find a whole bunch more resources on sleep there.
That's amazing. And it also makes it the book almost interactive, right? You know, because you can then go and get more information on the international website. And maybe you don't realize that you wanted information on sleep. Maybe you were looking on, you know, the first couple of days of breastfeeding, and then you go there to get more and you're like, oh, I need to look into sleep more because everyone needs.
Because I'm not having any.
I forgot, I need to sleep, right? Having all of that at your fingertips is great. And it's accessible on your phone, on a laptop, which makes it easier. What do you hope new parents feel when they hold this book in their hands for the very first time?
I could resume all in only one word: supported.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Of course, I can add, and I can add seen, heard, but I would choose supported.
That's a,
So
yeah.
the word I had was connected, which I think is kind of the same, but just for me, when I read those stories, for example, but also other parts, I feel this connection to other mothers around the world, you know, that this is something, I don't know, that we have the same concerns and questions and challenges, you know, and that's, so I do feel a big sense of connection.
An affirmation too, you know, validating their experience and avoiding any dismissiveness or minimizing.
I'd go for welcomed. The idea that it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what your breastfeeding looks like, you know, whether it's been a complete catastrophe or whether you feel it's going really well, you know, whether you're partially breastfeeding, giving just a little bit of extra breast milk, you know, whatever, that we have seen it before. And there is totally a place for you in the Leche League community. You know, we'd love to meet you and your baby.
I
Yes,
love
send us pictures of your baby.
and your baby. Yes. We love our babies. If someone was going to only read one section of the book in a moment of complete overwhelm, where would you suggest they start?
I have a favorite one. Chapter 1, there's a small section. It's called "Is it right for?" I think it's you or me. Is it right for me? Because it's written as you are the one who's speaking. So it's called "Is it right for me?" There we just try to acknowledge what we've been talking here. Acknowledge all situations, all cultural backgrounds, all family rearrangement, all, no? And just saying, you can try, maybe you cannot. Just, it's good, but it might not be for you, of course. No? So we try there to be as all the words we said, supported, welcoming, affirmation, no? And I mean, that one is the one I would choose.
I think, I can't remember the number of the chapter, but the one that's called Preparing, and it's really for people who are pregnant. But I think what it does is it reminds you about everything your body has done to prepare for breastfeeding, you know, the stuff that happens without you doing anything at all, and answers some of the common questions that people have at the beginning. So I guess depending on what stage you're feeling this overwhelmedness, but I think it's just a helpful one for someone who's getting started to just remember that this is something your body has been getting ready for, and here's some of the concerns you might have.
I've got like a little bit I can read, which is a favorite bit of mine, from the end of the chapter, which is called The First Few Days. And the section's called Floating the Right Way Up. It's quite short. One new mother described the first few days after birth like being thrown out of a ship at sea. Totally disorienting, all the usual landmarks gone, not even sure which way is up. A few weeks later, the same mother was at an LLL meeting, chatting knowledgeably about her baby's preferences, nursing on an unfamiliar sofa, while drinking tea and eating cake with one hand. She had become part of the community of mothers. She was finding her way. If you're feeling lost right now, your baby and your instincts are your best guides, and there's lots of support out here. Welcome.
I love it.
I do too. I do too, because we can all see that. We can all see that. I mean, that's one thing I know that leaders will often say, you know, a mom will come and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm completely, and then the leader turns around and is like, but you're the expert. You can tell me baby likes to be held upright when burped and turned and only likes to be this and that. And it's amazing how quickly they become experts without even realizing they're the experts. And how quickly with community and support, they can sit there drinking their tea and eating cake with one hand while nursing their baby.
Other beverages are available.
Yes. As needed, right?
I think that's another wonderful part of this book is whether you're listening to it or reading it, you can feel connected to moms and parents everywhere, just knowing that no matter where you are in your journey of mothering, parenting, breastfeeding, that someone has had a similar situation to you. And that, you know, because it can feel very isolating, especially in today's society where we have an information overload and there's so much out there, it can feel overwhelming and isolating. And so I know with me, when I've read through the book, I feel a connection to people I don't even know, to people I do know, because a lot of the names are familiar, but just to feel connected and to feel like I was part of something, you know, and that really, that helped a lot. Even though my kids are older and they're not, you know, little babies, it's still that connection piece. What's the one message or feeling that you hope parents carry with them after reading this book?
I can start. I would want them to leave the book knowing we know our baby better than anyone else, and we can trust ourselves.
Yes.
I like that. So that's very similar to what I was thinking. I think I had sort of two words, but confident and accepted. So that, you know, that you feel confident, as you were saying, that you can trust yourself and your baby, but and also accepted into the world of mothers, I guess, if you want to call it that, or parents, I should say.
Yeah, I was thinking about what we've mentioned, that you are not alone. There's for sure stories, if not the same, similar, then you can relate, and that some other people are living an experience or have even lived an experience, and maybe they can give you some advice somehow. No, I would say that. No, I'm always with support.
Yeah, I was also going to say not alone. And I think I want parents to feel, mothers to feel built up. Like whatever you're doing, it's enough. You know, you don't have to be achieving some sort of ideal standard. If you're managing to have a nursing relationship with your baby or provide some of human milk for your baby, if that's what you want to do, that's amazing and it deserves to be celebrated. And even if it's not like what you expected or what you hoped it would look like, that's okay. And you're doing something irreplaceable for your baby.
Those are all such wonderful messages. And I know that I've felt all of those while reading this book. You know, I mean, even as someone who, like I say, isn't breastfeeding her babies anymore, this book still connected with me, and it brought me back to the early days of being there and holding them and going through any of the difficulties and remembering what the LLH League leader that I was connected with at the time, what she said to me or how I was feeling. So this book isn't just for new moms and new parents. It can be for anybody, for grandparents, healthcare providers. That's amazing. Yeah. So do you have any final thoughts or any words that you'd like to share?
I think we should say thank you to the story contributors more than anything, because the stories were amazing, and anyone who dips into the book, even for 5 minutes, will find themselves laughing and crying probably, and also just being incredibly impressed by the resilience and determination and creativity of mothers to care for their babies the best way they can.
Absolutely.
I would also thank to all the team we had supporting us, because we had a whole amazing team helping us, Lydia, Gigi, all the translators. So I would also add another thank you there. Yeah.
And the illustrators too. Our illustrators did a wonderful job.
And the people who sent us photos.
Yes.
And also to, I don't know, the three of you and the experience of working with you has been absolutely incredible for me. I've learned so much from each of you, and you know, the working together, I think, made the book so much stronger. You know, as each section we all contributed to, and that, I think I will cry, but I won't. It really has been a great experience to work with people who bring different perspectives, and who just, you know, everything just got improved because of the work that everybody put in.
And it was so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. It was very fun, but we did a lot of work too.
I can only imagine how much work, because it's a fantastic book. And it almost feels like home. When I read it, it kind of makes me feel like I'm home, right? Like, because I can hear all the things that you guys have said about what the moms are saying, what the parents are saying. And I feel like, again, I just feel connected. I feel like it's home. And I hope that everyone who has the opportunity to read it, to listen to it, can feel that same connection and warmth that is obvious in all of your writing. And the way that it all came together is a lot like coming to a Leche League meeting, you know, and it's that warmth, it's that acceptance, that validation, the support, everything that you all mentioned is not just in the book, but in a meeting as well, whether you're going in person or virtual. So I just want to say thank you so much for all of you for sharing your insights, your warmth, your wisdom with us today, and for writing the book as well. If for those of you who are watching, if you haven't already purchased the book, or if you haven't read or listened to it, we encourage you to check it out. Go to your library, purchase it at a local bookstore. Leche League Canada has it available at our free virtual library. This is a great companion for every stage of your feeding journey.
The Art of Breastfeeding is available to purchase on LLLc.ca. When you purchase your copy through us, you're not just getting a beautiful, empowering book, you're also supporting Leche League Canada. Prefer to listen or read on the go? You can borrow the audiobook or ebook version of The Art of Breastfeeding for free through the LLLc virtual library. It's our way of making support and encouragement even more accessible, anytime, anywhere.